Hi. Just wanted to do a quick video on bracketing because I think it's a pretty essential part of pre-reading any Latin text, whether it be Cicero, Caesar, Virgil, Catullus, whoever. It will be a little more difficult to bracket in poetry, but definitely for Caesar and Cicero, it's going to be essential. So that's why I wanted to make this video for you. Let's move on, and I'll show you an example using Caesar, Book 1, Chapter 4. Alright, so before I start bracketing, I think it's important to point out the things we need to bracket in general. So I usually have two rules, or things to bracket at least. Number one, we bracket prep phrases, prepositional phrases. And two, dependent clauses. Alright, so as you see, I put prep phrase in blue and dependent clause in red, and this is because I want to color code this for you. But typically, if you're just using a pencil or a pen, you're going to want to do a prep phrase with parentheses, and I'll model that with the blue ink, and the red will be in square brackets for dependent clauses. Alright, so let's get started. I also like to read aloud as well. When I read aloud, I actually catch signals a little easier. So I see, for instance, a subordinate conjunction. When I'm reading aloud, I'll immediately in my mind think I need to start a clause. Or if I see a preposition, same thing. Alright, so Eares est Helvetiis per indicium enunciata. Now here we start off already, we see per. Per is a preposition, and it takes an accusative. So per indicium, we have our accusative right afterwards. Good. As we keep going, we see moribus suis orgetoricem ex vinculis causam dicere coegerunt. Alright, so yet again we have a prepositional phrase with ex, takes an ablative with our vinculis there, and that seems to work. I see an infinitive, but I know that coegerunt is not going to take an ACI, so I'm going to stay out of that one. Damnatum poenam sequi apportebat ut igni cremeretur. Now, I do know, because I know my vocabulary, I know Caesar pretty well, that when you see two accusatives in a row like that don't agree and they're not connected by an et, you probably have an ACI. And I see the word apportebat, and I happen to know that takes an ACI. So I'm going to bracket this off. And sequi, being our infinitive, is where this guy's going to end. Again, Caesar really likes to end clauses with verbs, whether it be an ACI or any kind of dependent clause. He won't always do this, but it's a good rule to live by unless something else really is screaming at you. Alright, and then also in this section I saw ut, and I think that needs to go through the end of our sentence here with our verb. Okay. Die constituta causae dictionis orgetrix ad judicium omnem suam familiam, ad hominum milia decem, undique coegit, et omnes clientes operatosque, suos quorum magnum numerum abebat, eodem conduxit. Alright, so the first thing I see a series of ablatives right away. We see an E, and we see an A and a participle. And I'm thinking ablative absolute immediately. But we have to be careful because these guys here are genitives. And these genitives are probably going with DA. So, just as I said there was a tendency for Caesar to end clauses with verbs, we end one with genitives. How about that? Moving on, we have an odd, and we know that odd takes an accusative. Judicium is indeed accusative. Note how we don't go all the way through omnem suam familiam. We end with our first accusative as long as there's no et or some kind of thing modifying our accusative. In this case, there are none of those. We see odd again here, okay? And we see ominum right afterwards, but we know from vocabulary that that's from homo hominis in its third declension, and therefore genitive plural. We have to keep reading. Milia decem is a better option for our accusative. So we have to go all the way through decem. We keep reading, and the next thing that comes to mind here is quorum, because that starts a relative clause. And again, we are looking for a verb, so we see quorum magnum numerum abebat. So there's our verb, and we close our bracket unless there's anything after it that makes us think otherwise, and there's not here, so we're okay. Okay. Per eos ne causam dicerat se eripuit. Couple things going on here. First of all, we see per eos, and we think, okay, just like up top there, we have per, it takes an accusative, there's an accusative in eos, so we're happy. Ne starts a clause just like ut starts a clause, and it goes to our first verb, diceret. And I think this is a great example of how chunking the text can really help us, because now we see se eripuit going with per eos, and we see our dependent clause right in the middle, and we know which words go with which clauses, and it's really, really neat. Alright, as we keep going, cum civitas ab eam rem incitata armis ius suum exequi conaretur multitudinem quae hominum ex agris magistratus coegert orgetrix mortuus est. Okay, so we see cum here, and I'm thinking it could be either a preposition or a clause, but since it does not it is not followed by an ablative, we think we have to have a clause, which is why I put it in red with the square brackets there. Before we can end that, we see ob. Ob takes an accusative. We see eam rem, and we say aha. We have to bracket that off with parentheses. And now I see incitata, and that I think has to be a participle. And when a participle has more than just itself, so in this case it has ab eam rem with it, it becomes a clause, doesn't it? So we do have to bracket this off, and I'm going to use caret brackets to show that it's adjectival, going with civitas. Okay? And we keep moving. Armis suis, armis ius suum exequi conaretur. Exequi is going to be a complementary infinitive with conaretur, because conaretur is a verb meaning to try, and it takes a complementary infinitive. Multitudinem quae hominum ex agris. There's our ex agris we need to bracket off with parentheses, so a prepositional phrase. And I think we're good for the rest of the sentence. Oh, wait, we did not end our cum clause. We still need to do that. It looks like we should end it at conaretur, but we see a quae here. That'll keep it going all the way through coegeret. We see two subjunctives connected by that quae. Okay, it's a bigger clause. Neque aves suspicio. Nothing there, it doesn't look like. But we see ut haveti arbitrantur quin ipse sibi mortum consciverit. Right? So first thing I see is that ut, and I immediately start bracketing, and we go to our first verb here, and we see quin. Quin starts a clause as subordinated conjunction, and that goes all the way through the end here at consciverit. And you note again, Caesar likes to put those verbs last in all of these clauses. Okay, so I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you on the next video.